Penampilan yang luar biasa dari Timnas Indonesia saat melawan Timnas Arab Saudi semalam menuai banyak pujian dunia. Tak hanya media Arab yang terkeju, tetapi pundit atau pengamat sepak bola kelas dunia pun ikut memberi komentarnya.
Like I just spent 99 minutes running alongside the Indonesian national team, bro, because this team went out to Saudi Arabia and just got a very important 1-1 draw. But the energy of these kids, man, the energy of this team, man, exhausting to watch. And I can't believe how much effort they put out on the field in this game overall, as it was completely back and forth football.
This game was lit. Indonesia have arrived at the AFC World Cup qualifying stage, and honestly, I thought this was going to be a Martin Paez disaster class because he ended up getting a completely unnecessary penalty with Firas closing in on him. He gets the ball, he swipes at it, but the ball's not there. It's Firas instead. The penalty gets called, but he redeems. He redeems the moment, and it didn't end there with that penalty stop. In stoppage time, Saud makes a crazy run down that left flank from 60, 70 yards back out, finds a beautiful ball to Firas once again. It's one-on-one. Martin Paez steps up big, gets the big save, and Indonesia hold on. 1-1 draw, a massive point on the road.
Massive, dude. And this team, dude.
Can't believe it. I can't believe it. It was way too dramatic of an ending.
This team is one of the most exciting teams out there to watch because of the way that they play, bro. They risk everything. They are chaotic. They go back and forth. The energy, the chances that they create on the counter. On the counter, one of the funnest teams I've seen in a long time. When they get on the counter, bro, when they get the ball and they start going, I get excited. I'm like, what is about to happen, bro? Because they go with so much aggressiveness, so much ambition, and it makes for some of the craziest sequences. Like on one of the very last plays, we almost got a one-on-one with Indonesia off the counter, and I just can't stop thinking about what would have happened if he was able to get his foot on the ball. The pass was a little poor to him, but that opportunity of itself, I think, represented just the threat that Indonesia poses, because they're getting better at this. They were much more organized in this game in comparison to what I saw at the AFC Asian Cup. And so it's cool to see because it's such a young team. I feel like they're slowly gaining experience. And I think today really showed just how much experience they've gained.
That's what's crazy, is that Saudi Arabia really piled up the pressure in that second half, especially since there was 10 extra minutes in stoppage time. But every time Indonesia got on the ball, it was just go at Saudi Arabia. And not even that chance in stoppage time, bro. Like in the 70th and the 80th minute, there were so many counterattacks that if they just had that one perfect pass, just one, they would have completely broke the Saudi defense and had a one-on-one against the goalkeeper. If they were just more clinical off the pass today, Indonesia would have won. And I agree with your statement that you just made earlier. Indonesia have improved since the AFC Asian Cup. This was actually the best performance that I've seen them put in. And I think the biggest thing that stood out for me was, yes, they actually looked even more deadly on the counter than they did 8 months ago, but more so, their defense was way more composed. Their defense looked so much more organized, and that really stood out to me because at the AFC Asian Cup, their defense was so erratic, it was so chaotic, and they left so many holes that just let their opponent infiltrate them. But in this game, honestly, they looked so organized, and I couldn't believe it because I didn't think it would just take 8 months for their defense to get shored up. But if they play like this for the rest of the World Cup qualifiers, they're for sure going into the next round, and maybe, just maybe, they could fight for a second place spot.
And for Saudi Arabia, man, I mean, ultimately, this is who we thought they were, bro. This is who we thought they were, and I'm not gonna lie, bro, I don't think I've seen Mancini smile once with this team. Oh my God.
Saudi Arabia don't got it no more.
Nope.
This was, in my opinion, a very poor performance. You're at home. The Saudi Arabia of 4 years ago, the Saudi Arabia of 8 years ago would have won this match, especially at home. It used to be a fortress. Now they were desperate trying to get a goal against Indonesia. And when you look at the goals that Saudi Arabia crafted or scored, I mean, the first one was a freak deflection. And I know Indonesia's was too, but if you consider Saudi Arabia to be a continental giant, what they're trying to scrap for is honestly kind of pathetic. And then the penalty, and they didn't even score it. They didn't even score the penalty. And it was Salam Al-Dosari, the guy you want to score it, man. Firas Al I've never seen him score a goal, and he's their striker. It's so disappointing if you're Saudi Arabian, because this team, what they've done over the last 8 years, has now culminated in this squad. That's so disappointing.
Yeah.
It's depressing that the new generation of Saudi players simply aren't good enough.
And I think the fans know it, dude. Because one thing that stood out to me is that in the stands, it was like 60% full, dude.
Yeah, you're right.
And I remember something that stood out to me a lot about Saudi Arabia specifically as a footballing country was in the build-up to 2018, when they were going to the World Cup and they had an incredible qualifying campaign. I would watch highlights at first and I would see the crowd just lose their mind. The support was insane in Saudi Arabia as they were building up to go to the World Cup, as they had a really exciting team. And now, dude, I feel like the fans know it, and it showed because the Indonesian fans were louder. They were louder, bro.
Dude.
Every time they were on the ball.
The best away support out of all 9 matches that were played today. The Indonesians showed up in Saudi Arabia. You were talking about how we want to see the home games for Indonesia. Those are going to be crazy.
That's must watch.
If they sent thousands of fans to Saudi Arabia to support their team, dude, it's going to be insane when they play at home. I cannot wait for their home fixtures. But yeah, I mean, it's just really disappointing for Saudi Arabia because, yes, they had a lot of the ball. Yes, they were able to put pressure on Indonesia, but it was all so predictable. They just give it to Al-Dosari, they give it to Garib off the bench, and they just say, dribble, penetrate, see what happens. There's no real craft in this team. And, you know, it used to be Mohamed Gano trying to facilitate in the midfield, but now they're asking him to basically be a striker because they have no other offensive options. It's really disappointing. He used to just be able to craft from the midfield, almost like a prime Paul Pogba, but now he's having to dribble. He's having to get past players one-on-one. He's having to shoot. It's not his game, and he ultimately becomes completely ineffective because he's trying to do everything. And outside of him and Al-Dosari, there's no help offensively. So you get this weird Saudi team that looks kind of good, but is ultimately way too predictable to be competitive against Indonesia, to be competitive against, you know, Japan's, the Koreas. So I'm just very disappointed with this home draw of Saudi Arabia.
No, 100%. And I got to wear FC Dallas because I really do think it came down to Martin Paes, dude. He could have been it could have been a disastrous performance. He would have been a terrible debut. Dude. He saves it himself, and then he saves Indonesia, and now he deserves the praise. He was incredible in goal.
So just one last note on Indonesia. For them going forward, I think all they have to fix is maybe show a little bit more trust in themselves. More specifically, I'm talking about the experience that they showed, because in the first half when they did concede, they were sitting way too deep, and they fixed it in the second half by meeting the ball way up higher, meeting the Saudi Arabians in the middle of the pitch. That's when they find joy because they can steal the ball and then they can go on a counter. But when they sit way too deep, they invite way too much pressure. But the thing is, they don't need to do that against Saudi Arabia. They need to trust themselves a little bit more because Saudi Arabia, like I said, they don't got it no more. If this was Japan, okay, well, that's a different story. You got to sit in deep. But against Saudi Arabia, you got to be a little bit more brave because the team is weak and they could have taken advantage of that, but instead they conceded. So I just think a little bit more experience could show and hopefully help them out. And like the Martin Paes moment, that was inexperience in my opinion. So they just fix that. Dude, Indonesia is going to do something crazy.
No, I agree because my biggest takeaway is I think they can play up to the level of any of the teams in this group outside of Japan.
Agreed.
I think they can do that now. And I didn't know if they could do that going in, but after this performance, they can do it, which means they'll have a chance at getting points out of every single match, minus Japan. Let's just go there.
Let's go there.
We said Japan would just go crazy in this group. Yeah. I didn't think like this, bro.
Dude.
7.
They're back. They're completely back, man.
They're back.
This was vintage Japan that was priming up to the AFC Asian Cup where they were averaging 4 goals a game, man.
Penampilan yang luar biasa dari Timnas Indonesia saat melawan Timnas Arab Saudi semalam menuai banyak pujian dunia. Tak hanya media Arab yang terkeju, tetapi pundit atau pengamat sepak bola kelas dunia pun ikut memberi komentarnya. Semoga timnas sepak bola kita dapat terus mempertahankan penampilannya seperti ini saat melakoni laga kandang melawan Australia di Stadion Gelora Bung Karno 10 September tahun 2024. Dan berita gembiranya, deras terdengar bahwa PSSI akan kembali menaturalisasi lagi beberapa pemain keturunan dari Belanda. Nama yang sangat santer terdengar adalah Mes Hilders dan juga Eliona Reijers. Semoga video ini bermanfaat bagi supporter Timnas Indonesia dan menambah spirit bagi perjuangan Timnas Indonesia. Bravo Timnas! Semoga kita bisa mendapatkan 1 tiket ke Piala Dunia tahun 2026 di Amerika.